Bob.
All right, this is great, absolutely great. You would not believe, I've been all over the place today and I've had such a great time. Pam, woo-hoo! So this evening we're having what's called an open mic and some music and some storytelling. Open mic means if you've got a story that you can tell in about 5 to 10 minutes, you're welcome to come up here and share that with us and entertain us. And then Candace for sure is going to give us some music. And if anybody else wants to come and sing, you're welcome to do it too. And then afterwards, we're going to have our plays, and I will introduce, our videos of Devil John Wright and Edith Maxwell. And I'll tell you more about that later. The restroom is at the end of this building, and most of you know where that is since most of you have been here many times. There's popcorn that the Lions Club is selling and drinks. I think they're each $1. And that hot popcorn will be good as we go along. I want to encourage you, if you're get comfortable and try to stay here for the evening because you won't be sorry you did. And I want you to enjoy this evening. And right now, I want to tell you that our Margaret Sturgill, Margaret, has put together a story and challenged Candace Nichols, to make it into a song. So Candace is here to sing the ballad. Am I saying it right? The Ballad of Edith Maxwell? Yeah. And so let's sit back and enjoy that. Candace?
I'll sit and do it if I can.
Try knocking your guitar.
If it's down with my voice, it'll be good. It should look up. I apologize for sitting over here looking like a masked bandit, but I'm allergic to smoke. So as soon as I get done, my voice has already started changing. So as soon as I get done, I'll be going home. I hope you guys have a good evening. But Margaret, I hadn't really heard a whole lot about Edith Maxwell, and it's something that burns in Margaret's heart. She just has a fascination for it, and she has a heart for it, and she wrote these words down, and she sent them to me. She says, "Would you think you could put some music to this?" I said, "Yeah, let me see what I can do." So I did, and she says, "The only thing I ask," says, "you can take it and you can sing it and do what, but the only thing I ask is that you call it Edith's Song, and that you explain that everywhere you sing it at least one time, and let people know about the story." And that's what I have endeavored to do. So the name of this is Edith's Song. Am I on? Yeah. Okay, because I'm not hearing me. Oops. Bobby, oh Bobby, this shouldn't be. Your love of the liquor was not kind to me. Bobby, oh Bobby, there shouldn't be. Your love of the liquor was not kind to me. Bobby, oh Bobby, now this land I must leave, the home of my birth, and forever I'll grieve. Bobby, oh Bobby, your grave is so to prison they'll send me, and there I'll grow old. Bobby, oh Bobby, there shouldn't be. Your love of the liquor was not kind to me. Bobby, oh Bobby, what was your perfume? Our fight wasn't worth what we both went through. Bobby, oh Bobby, your lifeblood is gone. And here in this prison I write this sad song. Bobby, oh Bobby, there shouldn't be. Your love of the liquor was not kind to me. Bobby, oh Bobby, Bobby, oh Bobby, they blame me today. Your daughter's not guilty, that's all I can say. Oh Bobby, there shouldn't be. Your love of the liquor was not kind to me. Bobby, oh Bobby, there shouldn't be. Your love of the liquor was not kind to me. You good?
That was wonderful.
Okay.
Thank you both, ladies. Candace is from Minnesota, and she lives on the line next to North Dakota. And so she's my friend, and she lets me get by with calling her Minnesota. So I hope the smoke doesn't bother you too much, dear girl.
I'm going home now.
So, let's get ready to have some good fun here. Does anybody else want to sing us a song? Or give us a story? Remember, we need to hold the speakers to 5 or 10 minutes. Who wants to go first? I think James said he wanted to be first at the... Now, James, if you give us some background, because when you were talking, I don't think I knew about that. So give us some background here.
Okay. Let me get up.
Before James takes over, let me just say this. This man here is Marley Green, for those of you who don't know him. He's our right-hand man. He's our representative with Apple Shop, and he's brought with him today Caroline, who also brought Picture Man Mullins collection that Apple Shop has. Not a few of them.
Right in there.
That woke you up. And Becca, who has been helping us put this thing together. Let me just say, this is not an easy thing to put together, but if the right attitude and the right goal in mind and the enthusiasm, it can happen. We'll do some more. I'll tell you some more about the characters who've worked this thing later. James Baldwin.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, my name is James Baldwin. My great-grandfather was W.G. Baldwin, owner of the Baldwin Felts Detective Agency, which the closer you get to West Virginia and Kentucky, the more people want to put a target on my back and see how far I can run down the street. But what I'm mainly here for today is to try and eliminate some of the lies and untruth and wrong ideas that people have about what happened on the 1st of August, 1921, on the steps of the McDowell County Courthouse in Welch, West Virginia. Now, Sid Hatfield, who was the chief of police in Matwan, had been charged with shooting up a coal chiplet in late August 1921. They got the trial moved from Mingo County to McDowell County, thinking he'd get off easier if they moved it to McDowell County. Well, they moved it. They arrested him on the 28th of July, 1921, took him from Matwan to McDowell, put him in jail. Ed Chambers, his close associate, automatically posted the bond for him. They got him out of jail. He went back to Matwan. Monday morning at 5:45 in the morning, his wife, Ed Chambers, and his wife got back on the train, along with Jim Kirkpatrick, who was a Mingo County deputy sheriff, and Sylvester Purdy, who was a member of the Department of Highway Public Safety for West Virginia. Those two gentlemen were supposed to be bodyguards and escorts for the four of them. Well, they rode the train to Welch, got off the train, and went to the hotel. There were no rooms available, so the union attorney that had been appointed said, "You guys can use my room because I'm going to go across the street and talk to the judge and try and get the venue changed on this trial, because you're not going to get a fair trial in McDowell County." Well, they went up to the room and they were sitting there, and when the 10:45 whistle blew on the train, they said, "It's time to go." Sid took out his two guns, laid them on the bed, walked down the stairs, walked across the street, started up the stairs. Sid Hatfield, Buster Pence, and Bill Salters, and about 15 other people. We only have names on a couple of them. One is Huey Lewis. Opened up on Sid Hatfield and Ed Chambers. Sid Hatfield had 17 bullet holes in him. Ed Chambers had 15 bullet holes in him. Now, if you can imagine four people sitting in chairs on the corner here, woman, man, and man behind them, and only the two men are struck with bullets. The two females, not even touched. Buster Pence, C.E. Lively, and Bill Salters were all immediately arrested, put in jail. 1921, $10,000 bond. Tom Phelps showed up, who was vice president of the company, walked into the sheriff's office, laid down $30,000 and says, "Turn them loose." They did. The trial finally came to existence in December of 1921, and that's because Bill Salter first had his tonsils out. We think that was just a ploy to kind of put things off. And then he contacted typhoid fever and survived that. And that's why the trial wasn't until December. Now the other fallacy that people have gotten into their minds is that C.E. Lively was charged with the murder of Sid Hatfield. No, he wasn't. None of the three were ever charged with the murder of Sid Hatfield. The three that went on trial in December of 1921 went on trial for the murder of Ed Chambers. Sid Hatfield murderer has never been brought before a court. And I hope that clears up some of the fallacies. Now, my cousin, Oakley Dean Baldwin, back here, has written quite a few books. The one that I'm taking this information out of is called Bloody Mango. It talks about the Matewan Massacre on May 19th, 1920. It talks about the shooting on the courthouse steps and how those two events led up to the Battle of Blair Mountain. Because folks, next year we're coming up on the 100th anniversary of the massacre at Matewan, and the following year is the 100th anniversary of the shooting on the courthouse steps and the Battle of Blair Mountain. I hope I've cleared up some things. Any questions?
You have those books for sale here?
I got them right back there, 2 rows. They're $12 a piece.
Thank you, James.
Thank you.
I believe Dean wanted to tell us something. This is Dean Baldwin. He's going to be one of our storytellers tomorrow.
Will this come up higher? I'll wait. I've got some local stuff for y'all here in just a second. We need a rubber band. Anybody got some duct tape? Okay. Like Linda said, my name is Oakley Dean Baldwin. I have to go by my full name. There's actually another author named Oakley Baldwin. Who would ever think that? But there's also another Dean Baldwin. So I have to go by my full name. So if you go to Amazon or Barnes & Nobles or Walmart or wherever they sell good books and look me up, you have to type in my full name. It's Oakley like the glasses, Dean, and Baldwin like the piano. I have, I'm going to talk about the Pound Gap Massacre tomorrow during my storytelling time. But I want to talk a little bit about the survivors of the Pound Gap.
Just a minute.
We have, I'm the author of Killing Moonshine Mullins is the name of my Pound Gap story, but I'm also the author of the follow-up book. It's called The Killing Rock and the Potter Family Connection. About a year ago, during research, I always wondered what happened to John Harrison Mullins, the 13-year-old son of Ira Mullins and his wife Lorenza, who were massacred by Doc Taylor and the Fleming boys up at the Pound Gap. Amanda and John, well, let's let that go first. It must be a thunderstorm warning.
Amber Alert, child abduction.
James, we're looking for you. No, that would be a senior alert, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. So basically we have John Harrison Mullins, 13 years old. He escaped the Pound Gap Massacre. Ira's sister Amanda whose husband was murdered, but she escaped on horseback. And actually there's a third, considered a third survivor of the Pound Gap. Amanda's daughter was named Mindy Mullins. And when she was a little girl, they were on the way to the Pound Gap, and she got real testy and crying and whining. So they stopped by and picked up a jar of sweet fruit. And it kind of calmed her nerves a little bit. I believe it was peaches, sweet can of peaches. And they talked her into staying with the grandmother, with their grandmother. So, and Wilson and Amanda said, we'll be back shortly, honey. You stay with grandma. So actually, that saved her life because she would have been probably in the wagon with Ira Mullins. So a lot of people consider her actually the third survivor of the Pound Gap Massacre. But the $64,000 question is, whatever happened to John Harrison Mullins? Well, I know what happened to him. I actually spent several months in the dungeon basement of the North Carolina Archives in the historical building, researching microfiche. Have you ever done that? Oh, the joy. All right? Hours and hours and hours of microfiche, and I found a 1904 newspaper article, one of 3 newspaper articles in a place called Potterstown, also known as Tamarack, North Carolina. And it mentioned John H. Mullins, and that he was in town for the trial of Clarence Potter. Clarence Potter had shot and killed a police officer, and he was on trial. So that raised a lot of interest. And I started making some phone calls to some family members up here, descendants of one of John's and his wife, their daughter, Corey Ann. John actually had 3 daughters, Lisa, Martha, and Corey Ann. Well, Corey Ann, through her line, they married some Holbrooks and some Webb families in this area. So I researched and tracked those people down and got some family lore history on what they were saying, what happened to John. Well, the story was that John left the family for another woman. And then he disappeared, and we lost him in the 1910 census. We couldn't pick him up anywhere. He was in the 1900 census with 2 children and his wife in Kentucky. And what happened was, John, he did leave his wife, but it may have not been for another woman at the time. And he married his wife in 1896. That's 4 years after the massacre, which would put him 17 or 18 years old. So he had a daughter the following year in 1897, and then had another daughter in 1900. So his third daughter was born in 1903, so we know he was still with his wife at least up until 1902 and a half, or somewhere in that ballpark, because you have to have a little time there during the pregnancy. So he disappeared sometime after 1902, but something happened in 1899 that caused him to disappear. John Harrison Mullins, a boy named Alex Bryant, and 2 of his first cousins, John and David Kraft. Now, he lived with the Kraft family when his mom and dad were murdered at the Pound Gap Massacre. So these were his first cousins. His aunt that he stayed with was Ira's sister, and she married Marion Kraft. So they had a very close relationship. He got out on his own. And in 1899, those 4 boys were walking from Pound to Shelby Gap. And I imagine it was for moonshine, but I don't know for sure. But since Marion Kraft was arrested later on for moonshining, and John had his father's recipe for moonshining, and probably that was the best way to make some money back then, tax-free moonshine. But I don't have any proof on that. But they were all, here's the story that John told because he was the only survivor. He told that they were walking to Shelby Gap and they had an argument, and David Kraft started an argument with Alex Bryant to the point where he pulled out his rifle and shot Alex through the head and killed him instantly. So they all scattered and went back to their homes, and the next day or so they gathered back up and said, hey, we've got to come up with a plan. We have Alex Bryant's body laying up there in the woods, and we've got to do something with him. So they decided to go back up there. I'm assuming they probably dug a ditch and buried Alex. But then the plan was made by John that he was going to give the Kraft boys some money, and that he was going to stay and turn himself in to the law and let them run off with the money. Well, the Kraft boys had a better idea. John's going to come with them, or they were going to shoot him on the spot. So they have a shootout, which John actually kills both David and John Kraft, but they got 2 rounds off each and shot John in the hip and in the arm. So he goes through the woods for a little ways and comes down to Devil John Wright's home. Well, Devil John Wright's not at home, but his wife Maddie's home. So she throws some bandages on him and stops the bleeding and tells him that you've got to leave, John, because if Marion Kraft comes here, he'll kill all of us. And so he made his way from Devil John's home to the jail to turn himself in. It took him several days later. And he turned himself in Whitesburg, Kentucky, and basically told the same story I just told y'all. So John had, he was the only witness, and they didn't have any evidence against him, so they actually let him go. So he left there, and then he had Marion Kraft and some other Kraft family members after him. So he left Kentucky and first went to Virginia, and they found him in Virginia, so he had to leave Virginia and he actually went to Wise, Virginia. That's when he left his wife and moved in with an unknown lady in Wise, Virginia, stayed there a little while. Then he went down to Bristol, Tennessee, and actually he got into real estate and purchased some property that is where the Bristol, Tennessee Mall is now built. And that lasted a short time. And then he went over to Potterstown, which leads us up to what happened to John. So John got up with a first cousin and actually married her under the name of John H. Potter, because he was still married to his wife, Bentley, Miss Bentley Mullins, Mary Bentley Mullins. And he gets into a bar fight and gets shot in the leg, and his leg swells up and gets infected, and they have to amputate his leg. This is in 1904. So about 2 months later, the infection, there's another newspaper article that says that John H. Mullins was shot 6 weeks ago, and it's looking pretty grave for him. He's got infection. He's not going to live very long. And then about a month later, I found another article on the microfiche that says that John H. Mullins, who was shot, and it actually said who accidentally shot himself. So I don't know if that story was told to protect somebody, but that's how the newspaper reported the story, and has died from his injuries. So John died around November the 1st of 1904. So if you have any Mullins in your family tree and you want a death date for John Harrison Mullins, it's going to be within a day or two around November the 1st of 1904. And that explains why we can't pick him up in any census or any other documents after that. So his wife, Mary Bentley Mullins, she and one daughter contracted tuberculosis. So she was sent up to the ward up in upper state Virginia, and I can't remember off the top of my head, it's in my book, the name of the location. But she actually died in 1911 of TB, of tuberculosis. And one daughter died, and she's buried over here. And we looked for her, but it must be in an unmarked grave because we can't find her. But Cora, when she was a little girl, she said she remembered the funeral of her sister being up there. So we're pretty sure about that. Tomorrow, if you're here, I'll tell you what happened to Amanda Jane Mullins, the other survivor of the Pound Gap Massacre, as part of my story, because that's another story in itself too. So real quickly, that's what happened to John Harrison Mullins. Thank you very much.
Oakley Dean is, I think you titled what you're doing tomorrow, the aftermath of Killing Rock, the aftermath. So that he'll pick up and tell us more tomorrow. Is everybody getting comfortable? We've got more chairs coming out by our right-hand man. And don't forget, there's hot popcorn and drinks in there. And for those who might have just arrived, there's a restroom around the side of the building there, toward where our new bridge is. We have another story, I think. Hugo del Torres, which I think means something about towers. Is that right? Has said he wanted to stay to give us a story. But is there anybody else here to give us a story? Y'all think about it. And Hugo is from Florida, and he came up here earlier in the year, and and made friends with us, and so he's come back today. Hugo.
That's okay, I'm good. Good evening. So many stories about, I don't want to say negative stuff. Why not tell a story about something good? Why not tell a story perhaps of a peasant turning into a prince? Why not find those stories right here in the hometown? One story I like to share is a young lad. He could have been right here in this same spot. He was once going fishing because he was so hungry, because his family might not be able to afford to feed themselves. And what happens is this: in his hungerness and from sitting there in the hot sun, he fell back asleep. And in his sleep, he had a dream. And on that dream, he seen a bull with his horns was blowing smoke. I'm going to take you 30 years after that as to how this peasant went from being a simple peasant into perhaps more than a prince. Someone that through his writing was able to inspire millions and millions of people. And to this day, he is a beacon of light that is shining in over 50 countries. And he's one of you guys. He was born right here in Pound. You know, at a young age, he lost his mother. And that's one of the stories as to how defeat can be turned into something much greater than that defeat. Can you imagine losing your mother? But through that, he was able to get a stepmother. And at that young age, when he was running around here with a gun, and all he did was start trouble all over the place. In his mind, he wanted to be Jesse James. But his stepmother, instead, what he did was he bought him a typewriter. And he started writing stories about the town he lived in. Those stories became successful. He got to work with that guy from Stone Gap. He was a lawyer. And through meeting him, he got to meet other people. He had a brother, and they both share a passion. One wanted to be a lawyer, and the other wanted to be a writer. And being that they're not able to pay for each other's ways, this young lad decided that he was going to write those stories. And through the writings of those stories, he put his brother through college, and he became a lawyer. Through the association of other friendships, the opportunity came where he was asked to do an assignment. And the first person that he went to speak to was Andrew Carnegie. I'm sure you are familiar with Andrew Carnegie. And as he went up to his office, trying to meet this great person, he was sitting there waiting hours to meet this guy. After the end of the day, Andrew Carnegie says, you know what, why don't you come over to my house? And they spent 3 days speaking. And through those 3 days, Andrew Carnegie made this chap that came here from town and asked him if he would be willing to spend 25 years of his life on a mission without expecting anything in return. And he gave him 30 seconds. And that young lad said, yes, I will take on that challenge. And that challenge was to bring the laws of success to as many people as possible through learning principles that were used by all the successful people of that time. We're talking 1820s, like the older gentlemen. So this was all happening at the same time where we see so much chaos. At the same time, there's other things happening that are of good things that are happening. He went on to write this book called Think and Grow Rich. That book, during his lifetime, sold over 10 million copies. Now that book has sold hundreds of millions of copies. He also finished the 16 Laws of Success, and when he became older, he went back en route. I don't want to take much of your time, but the thing is this, that on this day, today is his birthday. And the person that I'm speaking about is one that's right there on the picture outside this museum. His name is Napoleon Hill, and he has influenced me greatly. He has turned me from a simple peasant, that my hope is that I come back here 5 years from now and that I have fulfilled his dream, that through understanding some simple laws, one can come to have a peace of mind that constitute more than just monetary riches. It's at the end of the day about living the golden rule, to do unto others as you like done unto yourself. And in this way, well, we'll see. He came from a peasant to a prince. My hope is that I come back here 5 years and share my story with you guys once more. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Hugo. Anybody else want to give us a story or sing us a song? Come on. What? You want to tell
Yeah, I'll
us?
tell you a quick story.
You tell me a story? Okay. Folks, this is Ernie Binko. I know him as the man behind the camera. He works for the Appalachian Regional Commission.
Community television.
And television, right? And we discussed a little bit today, some information he had. So give us your story.
There's a lot of things I could tell you about. One thing, Dr. Taylor was never hung, and that's a completely different story. And Phil back here, and I met with about 30 descendants of Dr. Taylor this summer, and they think he was, that he left here and went to Missouri. And there's some information about that out there. But here's the story you probably never heard. Who were the first Europeans in Virginia? It was the Spanish. They were in Lee County. Who ever heard of that? Well, the Spanish were in Central America and South America, and they ended up in Florida, and they asked the local Indians, where's the city of gold? They pointed north and said Appalachia. The Apalachicola Indians from Florida named these mountains. And the Spanish came up here looking for the city of gold. Now the Spanish had in their mind that gold and silver came from the mountains. They came to the Carolinas and had several forts in the Carolinas, and they ended up going to Lee County, and then they went to Saltville. Now the chief's braves over there, and the translated name of that Indian tribe was Children of the Sun. And the braves were out in the woods one day and saw these people dressed funny and had beards, came back and told the chief, and the chief didn't like it, sent word to them if they wanted to live to get home, keep out of his territory. Well, the Spanish didn't like that. They come up and killed everybody in the village, except his daughter. And I thought, well, yeah, they killed 2 dozen people. No, they killed over 1,000 Indians in Saltville. Now, the Indians were protecting their salt, which at that time, salt was just about as valuable as gold, depending on where you're looking. They tortured them, wanting to know where the city of gold was. And of course, there was a language barrier. But anyway, the only person that they kept alive was the chief's daughter, and they raised her as their own. There's a friend of mine from Virginia Tech that's done quite a bit of research for this. His degree is actually in chemistry. He's from London. He spent 20-some years at Virginia Tech teaching chemistry. He was getting ready to retire, so they sent him to Saltville to find out what else was in the ground besides salt. He got to know people, and they were giving them Indian artifacts and bones and telling this story about this tribe. Well, he looked in Virginia history, couldn't find anything. Looked in West Virginia, looked in Kentucky, and couldn't find anything at all about this. But he did find out that the chief's daughter was in an inquisition in St. Augustine, Florida. And she was giving this to the King of Spain. What is this about? That she would talk about ocean water coming out of the mountains 500 miles from the ocean. She didn't know how to say salt water, but she associated it with ocean water. So after all this professor went to Spain and pulled the records in Spain about this story that she was telling. Sure enough, all this happened in Virginia 67 years before Jamestown. There's no record in this country because there wasn't anybody here to write it. I think that's a pretty neat story. Anyways, it's being documented now. Thank you.
Thank you. So Ernie, we need you to get all that together and expand on that. That's very interesting stuff. It kind of explains a lot about the Swift Silver Mine.
I can tell you about that too.
Events, yeah, right, which I've been fascinated with. So anybody else have a story for us? No. Well, anybody want to sing a song? Me and Paula can give you one. But we won't.
Give me a bucket and I'll sing.
My bucket's gotta have a lid on it though.
Okay, so we might as well go ahead with our movie. It's only about, well, Kenny Mullins, folks.
Okay, folks,
Say that.
everybody knows me as Kenny Mullins. My name is Kenneth Buford Mullins. And my grandpa stuttered when I was a little biggie booger when I was born. Mother had me pinned on a pillow with my nightgown. Grandpa came over and he said, well, he stuttered a little bit. He said, well, what did you name a little fella? She said, Kenneth Buford Mullins. He said, that killed that young'un. He said he couldn't say Buford. He said, I'll just call him Kenny Buttermilk. So I went by Kenny all my life, and raised down there in Skeet Rock, right near the intersection of Blowing Rock. That's where I live now, in the intersection of 611 and 619, on the corner, 40th and Plum. But anyway, some fellas I worked with at Clinchfield at Duty, Virginia, they wanted to come over and visit me one day, and I told them to come to the brick frontage store building there in Skeet Rock and asked directions if they couldn't find me. And they came over and stopped, and this old lady, she was about 83 or 84-year-old, John Arthur's mother, and Lydia Arthur. And they said, we're looking for a Kenneth B. Mullins. And she said, ain't nobody like that lives around here. I'd live just about a mile above there. So they said, oh, he told us you could tell us right here at this store where he lived. She said, no, ain't nobody like that around here, but said, now there's a Kenny Mullins lives about a mile up the road. But anyway, all of this about the weekend here is kind of telling about Devil John Wright, Doc Taylor, Ari Mullins, moonshining and whiskey. And I know a story that's kind of put in a song, and I kind of have to tell the story as I sing a little bit. Of course, I can't sing, but I mean, I'll do my best. I couldn't carry a tune in a bucket with a lid on it, but the name of this song is called Straighten Out My Leg. I mean, the way they said it was straighten out my leg. And it's about this feller, moonshining, and I have actually known two old people in my time, I was a young boy, who said they've experienced something like this. And it's if someone that went out and got a leg or an arm broke, and that arm or leg was put in the grave crooked, and it would cause you to have terrible pain in that arm or leg. And you'd have to get a family member to go out, dig it up and straighten it out in order to quit hurting. So the name of this, we'll say story or song, is called Straighten Out My Leg. I guess if I can remember it. Now, I've been eating popcorn, I may choke up. I was a-going down the holler with a load of Mountain Dew. I fell off of the wagon and I broke my leg in two. They cut it off with a pocket knife and dug 3 feet below. They put my leg in crooked, that's why it hurts me so. Straighten out my leg, straighten out my leg. Take me down in the holler, Molly, and straighten out my leg. Oh, when they cut my broken leg off, it almost took my breath. They seared it with a red-hot iron, or I would have bled to death. They put my leg in crooked in that grave beneath the snow. That's why it hurts me when I try to wiggle my big toe. Straighten out my leg, straighten out my leg. Take me down in the holler, Molly, and straighten out my leg. Oh, if you'll go down in the holler, gal, and straighten out my leg, I'll hold you tight, we'll dance all night on my wooden peg. We'll live a life of Riley like we did days of old. When you straighten out my leg, I won't hurt anymore. Straighten out my leg, straighten out my leg. Take me down in the holler, Molly, and straighten out my leg.
That's great, Kenny. You can always count on Kenny. Kenny's going to be our storyteller tomorrow night after the big event tomorrow afternoon. Everyone's invited to go up to the Killing Rock. There'll be a big bonfire, and Kenny's going to tell us one more story at the site of the massacre. And we're real grateful to Kenny. He's very supportive of things that happen here in Pound, even though he's a Dickinson County boy.
We won't hold it against him.
We won't hold it against him. Okay, so we're ready for our first video. Are we ready for our first video?
Take a 5-minute break and we'll switch that.
I just want, before you break, I want to tell you one thing. And he can switch it, we can start. I called Pamela Gilmer today. This video that we're going to see is called True Lies, and it is a play that was done in 2006, written and directed by Pamela Gilmer, who was in charge of the Pound tomorrow we need cars right there so we can have a sound barrier. Where was I? Anyway, she wrote and directed this, and she was very fascinated whenever she read the business about what happened with Edith Maxwell back in 1935, accused of killing her father with actually a slipper. There were some headlines that called it a slipper slayer. She was a slipper slayer. And so she led her drama group into this wonderful little play, and they videoed it, and so we're going to share it with you today. She herself will be here tomorrow as Edith Maxwell, and she is, I think, as good authority on what happened as anyone, and that's going to be very enjoyable. It's at the end of the day. Now, our right-hand man forgot to bring schedules today. We were going to pass out schedules so you would know just who came when and where. But there is a schedule posted on the door of the building, and he will have schedules tomorrow. I can tell you, first thing on the schedule tomorrow is some music, and then we'll go straight into not Sarah.
Nancy's gonna talk about Jack and Foster.
Yes, Nancy Smith is going to talk about a story that most of y'all don't know. It happened right here in Pound. Going to be real interesting during the Civil War. And then there'll be a Sarah Hobson who's going to talk about Red Fox the Mystic. And we have some great music tomorrow. Strawberry Jam. We love them, don't we? And Kirsten Hobbs, that man, that young man, is just, I can't wait to see what happens in his life. I love his music. He's just like Grandpa, only he's, what, 19? And also tomorrow, to start us off, Drake Brock is going to come and sing a couple of songs for us tomorrow morning, at noon, first thing, yeah. And then there'll be, Oakley Dean's going to tell us about the aftermath of the Killing Rock, and followed by Royce Mullins, who's going to talk about the Fleming brothers and their part of what happened in 1892. And then we'll have Edith Maxwell. I think you all will thoroughly enjoy tomorrow. It's going to be great. I want to say one thing before I sit down. This has been, the planning of this event has been almost a year, talked about and then done. But I want you all to clearly understand that we have a person in this town who is just, she's not in this town, but she's taught Pound students. And she has just worked diligently to try to do what she sees as a good thing for the community. And most of you know Debbie Hale. She's my hero for many reasons. Let's hear it for Debbie Hale. If she makes good things happen and she doesn't give up. So, we want to break a minute now?
Just for a couple minutes after
Yeah.
break. Good.
Stretch your legs and get ready.